Well, today I've come to the great city of Leeds in Yorkshire, and just a few miles outside, just past Headingley, is the Lawnswood Cemetery. It's my first visit to this one, and we'll just go through and explore it. First thing we notice is a very clear notice board laying out the cemetery. First opened in 1875, so we're looking at a 150-year-old cemetery. So if you're looking for a particular grave, this map will help you find it. Directly inside the gate is the Garden of Remembrance. Two memorials here with lists of names. Let's go and have a look at the first one, which I suspect is of World War I. I can tell you from here that there are a lot of names. Let me just give you a close-up of a couple of the panels. Starting with the one on the left here. Lance Corporal W.T. Anderson, 3rd Battalion, Canadian Infantry, 1915. Go along, there looks to be about 10 on each of these panels. 10 men who gave their lives in that first war. Let's pick another one at random here. Top name on this one, Private F. Thompson, aged 48, King's Own Yorkshire Light Infantry, 1915. And so the names go on. There's a plaque here just summarising that it's those British sailors and soldiers who gave their lives and who lie buried in this cemetery. So these are just the names of the people buried here, not all the men from Leeds who gave their lives. Well, there's 15 panels and 10 per panel, so we're looking at 150 men buried in Lawnswood Cemetery. If I spin round slowly, there's another panel over here, and this is two more men from Leeds, but these are men who are buried in Leeds General Cemetery. It tells me that across the top there. We've got some 7 panels here, about 20 names on each, another 130, 140. Just close up on a couple. Lance Corporal H.F. Hanlon, West Yorkshire Regiment, 1918. And below that is Rifleman Haxby, who was aged 40. So we have probably 130 names here of men buried in Leeds General Cemetery. Well, that's a very nicely kept garden commemorating those men who died. A really well kept area, so well done Lawnswood Cemetery. Just beyond that we can see that the main part of the cemetery extends a long way down in front of us. As I turn to the right, graves just stretching into the distance, and the same behind me. A modern-ish memorial beside the path. Albertha Martin, 2006, George Anthony Brown, but what took my eye was the image here. It appears to be a weightlifter inside a 5-pointed star. If anyone has any idea what that's all about, then please add it to the comments for others to see. On the corner here is a Very large cross with RIP at the top, rest in peace. And we see from the inscription, James Graham, PhD, the Director of Education for the City of Leeds, 1905 to 1931. Although we've looked at the Garden of Remembrance to those who died in the two wars, I'll just pick out these two stones alongside the path here. H. Firth, Royal Air Force, age 32. And then one just behind here, Flight Lieutenant Dean, King's Own, Yorkshire. And underneath it is another Dean. But sadly it's rather worn, that stone, unusual for the CWGC stones. But there are the two Deans are in that one grave. Well, I'm walking down one of the main paths, and this very large white memorial certainly stands out. I'm not seeing any names on these two sides. Let's go around here, and we have the name Annie Elizabeth, wife of W.H. Heenley of Tunbridge Hotel in Leeds. Well, I hope we can get this one. I'm shooting into the light and it's not a very clear inscription. Umrigar, Edna Barnett, 2015, Dinshaw Kekasharu and Carl Jason Henry. What I noticed was around this hole in the stone, unusual in itself, it says New York, Leeds, Bombay and San Francisco. Down here on the left are two or three in a very black stone. The first one is to John Arthur Stembridge, a JP, Chapel Allerton, and Lady Atke, his wife. This one, the inscription is round on this side. This is to H. Howard Stokes, 1937, aged 54, and that's been brought out in gold lettering. His poor wife gets just pale white lettering underneath. And if I turn the camera across to a very tall, elegant cross, again in the black, and the inscription is, well, on the front face is Elizabeth Wigglesworth. Now, I do apologise if you can hear a noise in the background. We have aeroplanes taking off from the Leeds Bradford Airport, and they're coming over close to the cemetery today. As we carry on down this path, what strikes you is the one absolutely dead ahead. Black, centrally situated, with a lot of gold inscription on it. A very prime position to get in a graveyard. Let's have a look and see if it says anything of interest to us. So it's the Elizabeth, the wife of Samuel Fergus, a doctor, aged 86. And then the good doctor himself, Samuel Fergus, doctor and Justice of the Peace. And then underneath, Samuel Paul H. Fergus, surgeon, lieutenant, Royal Navy Volunteer Reserves, grandson of the above, killed on active service in HMS Venetia, 1940, aged 28. So it's a war grave, amongst others. And beneath that we have more of the Fergus family. This one on a corner has got the image of Christ on the cross. It's quite badly worn as a stone, and the inscription is too difficult to make out. Well, I've moved across to another section. This is amongst the trees here. This is rather lovely, rather magical. You see the stones with the creeper going over them. It makes it difficult to get the inscription, but that's fine. It just looks a rather lovely, peaceful spot. On the other side of the path I notice another war grave. To the proud, I like that, to the proud and loving memory of our son Anthony, Lieutenant A.G. Morehouse, West Yorks Regiment, killed on active service, Portside, 1956, aged 21. And there's some other names underneath. Round the corner we come across the chapels of Remembrance, normally done in pairs, one for the conformist Church of England and one for the non-conformist. And I noticed there's a new building here with the Book of Remembrance and toilet facilities. Round the corner is this very grand memorial. Charles Henry Johnson of Holydean Roundhay, 1912, aged 71. Beneath that we have other names. This part of the graveyard is particularly magical amongst the trees. Let's have a little wander. It's so peaceful in here. I haven't seen anybody else while I've been walking around. Let's see if we can read the inscription on this one. Joseph Calloway, or Mary the wife of Joseph Calloway of Headingley, 1888. Arthur their only son, who died just 3 months old in 1870, and then Joseph himself, who died in 1912. Let's carry along here. That one is Mary the wife of Jesse Wood. You can see this one is Walter Beckwith, 1888. If I go across the path, a very tall, grand one here, across high up, almost in the trees. I don't know whether we'll see a name on it. Joseph Green, a mechanical engineer, 1884. It's nice when they tell you a little bit about them. His trade, mechanical engineer. I do wish people would put a little bit more information on the memorials so we can get some sort of a picture of the person. This is a nice one. Arthur, son of George, William and Elizabeth Welch, 1878. Carry on up here. Robert Pharamond Daniel, 1838 to 77. And look back here, where someone's cut the grass back. There are rows more of stones. One there in the trees, you can just see the edge. This is a lovely spot. Sadly, this one's tipping backwards. Interesting name. Francis Kruckenberg of Headingley. He died in 1863. I've come around a corner and the stones are even grander. Very large, sort of table tomb type. Now there's an area here where obviously the ground is a bit soft because they've fenced it off and there's some stones fallen. Now look at this. You don't see that sort of stone very often. Well, we've got an angel holding a flame in one hand. We've got one with a cross here and one holding out a cup of some sort. I'm sure there's great significance to these figures. In lumbering memory of Samuel Wilson, JP of Leeds, 1851 to 19, and the last letter is gone, so 1911, 1919. Just look at this. We've got a skull, we've got a woman on the right hand side, it looks like a snake. And is that a woman lying? It's a woman lying on the ground with her head to the left. Amazing. This chap here, or maybe it's not a chap, maybe it's a lady, with the cross and the book. Well, you'll be pushed to find a more elaborate memorial, even in the famous graveyards in this country. This is quite something. Just walking away from that one, down another one of these paths, there are some magnificent memorials. The sun is lighting this one up rather nicely. It's an angel, but she's lost her right arm, sadly. And the inscription is to James Alexander Moxon. Next to that we have another angel, and she's lost her left hand. And behind that we're getting this very tall broken column. Column broken, indicating a life cut short. And at the bottom, Harry Hopkin in his 40th year. There's just so much to show you. And how about this angel on top of the high plinth? She must have had something in her right hand at one time. Her left hand is clasping flowers to her bosom, and the inscription at the top is William Jacques and Mary Scarborough. And this one, massive piece of stone, very ornately carved, sort of Celtic cross there, coming down to Peter Laycock of Woodhouse Cliff in Leeds. And here, look at this one, magnificent memorial. George Penn, or it could be Penstonby, and Dorothy Dale. But the work that's gone into doing that is quite remarkable. And I turn a corner and look at these. This is amazing. There's a guy here, I think it's probably in brass, sowing seeds. It's huge. If I stood alongside it, I would come up to the elbow of that man. Arthur Courier Briggs at Ootwood Hall, Wakefield. And then over here, a lady, life-size, standing in a shelter, a bunch of flowers, and two doors behind her, but they don't go anywhere. They're just doors that open out onto the back of the memorial. So it looks as though she's standing at her front door. Now I noticed there's a little board alongside, and it tells us that this is a memorial to Ethel Preston, married to Walter Preston, a manufacturing chemist, and they lived at the Grange. A year after her death, Walter married his 22-year-old housekeeper. The sculpture is unknown, but it's a Grade 2 listed monument. I'm not surprised. Quite something. I've moved a little further along and I've come across this building, and it appears to be just purely for memorial plaques on the walls. I can just make them out from here. We'll have a closer look. Well, the notice tells me it's a Columbarium. That's a new one on me. And when I look through the locked doors, I can see shelves and racks with little compartments containing boxes with memorials on. So I assume this is where perhaps the remains, the ashes of people are kept in these little areas, storage areas. And around the main walls, as I had expected, is just one mass of memorials. One caught my eye there. Wilfred Dawson, bandmaster, Black Hall Colliery Band, died in 47. Just show you some of these. It's amazing. And of course very easy to read. They're protected from most of the weather. As I say, inside this building it appears to be lots of boxes, small boxes, presumably with the remains or the ashes of loved ones. And sadly it's not open at the moment. Mr. Beetham, who was a surgeon, has got a larger than usual, and he died at Torquay down in Devon. He was 45 years a medical practitioner in Leeds. It's always nice when they tell you a bit more about what they did in this world. There's just so many. You could spend a day just moving amongst these. Remarkable and very, very well done. And so on. And I'm back on the wooded paths again, and I've seen nobody. There's a little traffic noise in the distance, and occasionally an aeroplane I think I can hear children's voices in the distance, but nobody else is enjoying this moment in this wonderful graveyard. And yet it's mid-afternoon, weather's good. Some very big ones here, lying flat, looking at poor repair, that one. This one, sort of stepped design. Frederick William Kitson of Burley Hill, Leeds. The one behind has got a clear inscription. Let's have a look at that one. Martha Jane, wife of Henry Crowther, sometime curator of the Leeds City Museums. She died 26. Martha, the widow of Elijah Clark, and then Henry Crowther died in 37. Good. They've told us a little bit about him and what he did. This one here, the seams are coming apart. It's a shame. Needs a little bit of attention. Right back in there amongst the trees you can see memorials. This one here almost completely disguised with a creeper on it. If I pan around to the other side of the path, just so much to see. And then through the wooded section we come into the later open part of the cemetery. It's just acres and acres of memorials. I'm looking over there and I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 of the CWGC war memorials. One here stands out because it's larger and it has the copper wreath. Harriet, wife of Arthur Hope Gibson, and the above Arthur Hope Gibson. But sadly it tells us nothing about what Arthur and his wife did. Very international here. We've got a large stone here with Chinese characters, Chan Kwai Kong and Chan Kung Tai Tai. And next to it, it's interesting, Barbara Simpson, a missionary to Hunan in China, 1894 to 1977, next door to a Chinese memorial. Another Chinese one here, Cheng Chai Yim. So this is a Chinese section. Yao Ip Yuk Kui. My apologies if I've got that badly wrong. So much to see. Across the path here are 5 of the traditional war graves, and they all have flowers in front of them. Let's have a quick look. This is HS Ferndale, UT pilot. This is Battersby, a flight engineer. This stone in the middle, I don't know whether that fits with the rest. B.A. Bell, flight engineer. K.R. Buckle, and H. Hoyle, a navigator. So the 5 of them are all RAF memorials. Well, I've moved further into the cemetery and there are acres of modern graves in front of me. I'll just try and pick 1 or 2 to show you. This one is very poignant. This is a memorial to a 8-month-old child, but she died more than 30 years ago, and just look at the way the grave is decorated and looked after. They still come here more than 30 years later. This one is very well cared for. They put extra stones around the grave area. It is one mass of flowers. And it commemorates Stuart David Riley, aged 24, who died in 2004. And at the top you see an image on a competitive motorcycle, like a scrambler of some sort. Our precious son Stuart. I'm always on the lookout for unusual surnames, and Nettleship, that's the first one for me, Fred Nettleship, 1996. And I've rounded a corner and come across this area, quite unusual. You'll notice that all the stones, almost all the stones, are of identical design. Yet they are for individual people or families. Herbert Reedshaw and his wife Marjorie, and so on. But right the way down here, the next section too, there's a whole range of dates on these stones, yet they're all the same. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it for individual graves. You get it in what are called guinea graves, where multiple people are in one grave from different families, but this is not the case here. These are not guinea graves. Is it some different religion, Christian religion of some kind, that dictates they all have the same stones? Very unusual. Just over the road from the main cemetery is the Friends Meeting House, the Quakers, and they believe in doing things much simpler. You'll notice that the stones are all uniform, apart from the front row, which is the very latest additions, and they've gone to something a little larger, but all uniform in height and design. In fact, in many Quakers' meeting houses or burial areas, you don't find names on the stones, you just find initials and dates. But these are all named. This is Kenneth Davison, aged 62 years, and Olga Davison, 1987. Move along to Alice Ann Coates. It's still kept simple. There's no excess words, but they are putting the names in this particular meeting ground. You'll also notice that none of the graves have flowers on. They're not got little additions that you see in the other part of the graveyard. It's all kept very low key, but just as lovely. This is a large one. I don't think I've been to such a large friends meeting house, burial ground before. You can hear the aeroplane in the background, I expect. Apologise for that, but it's almost non-stop traffic out of the airport. Yeah, it's quite different. There's no trying to outdo anybody else with the more elaborate stones or inscriptions or larger plots. It's all very uniform, just names and dates. Annie Elizabeth Dyson, 1924, age 50. Lucy Jones Dyson, 1943, age 74. And so that's the Friends meeting ground, meeting room, and the graveyard attached, which is directly opposite the main cemetery that we've spent some time in. Well, I'm going to draw it to a conclusion here. If you're up in Leeds, then this is a must on your list. Very well worth a visit. You have both the very old section amongst the woods and the newer section here, but lots to see. You spend many hours here. With the aeroplanes in the background. Till the next time.